Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, How B2B Enterprises are using LeveragePoint to develop and execute their value-based strategies. I'm Paul Carpinella, Marketing Program Manager at LeveragePoint. Today's webinar is sponsored by LeveragePoint. We are the cloud software solution that enables the world's leading B2B enterprises to execute their value-based strategies. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague and today's presenter, Ed Arnold. Ed is LeveragePoint's Vice President of Products and co-founder. He has 25 years of worldwide consultancy experience, and at LeveragePoint, he directs product design and development and drives our go-to-market strategy. He also leads LeveragePoint's customer adoption programs, providing initial training and coaching to all new customers. His chapter, Making the Case for Value-Based Pricing Software in B2B Markets, was featured in the popular pricing book, The ROI of Pricing. Ed, over to you.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for that introduction. And hello to everyone who is attending this webinar live today. And greetings also to anyone who's watching this recording in the future. Today, I want to demonstrate a couple of customer use cases using the LeveragePoint value-based pricing strategy platform. We don't normally do demonstrations, but often there are questions about exactly how the program works, and we'll be showing that today. And I'll be using a couple of use cases that I think are interesting in and of themselves, regardless of whether you've seen the application before. So I think there'll be information there for anyone. And of course, during the end of the webinar, I'll be happy to answer any specific questions about the platform or how our customers currently use it. And currently, we have a user base in the thousands, and we've gained a lot of practical experience about the many ways that individuals and teams collaborate around developing and executing a value-based strategy. So to begin, I want to provide a high-level description of our platform. And the first thing you'll notice here is that it's a cloud-based application. And that allows everyone in an enterprise to efficiently collaborate on a number of value-based activities. And when I say efficient, I really mean that all the data is kept in one place, totally secured and organized for people to search and reuse. And this enables product, marketing, and pricing teams to build out value models so they can make better strategic decisions, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about in a moment. And then after those strategic decisions have been made, you then have an excellent content repository for customer-facing teams to use, and that gives them more confidence and shows more consistency in communicating your differentiation and your messaging. Plus, because it's a platform, both sides are linked together. Therefore, you get the benefit of continuous improvement, and you also gather the latest field intelligence. And that's a tremendous advantage that allows even very large organizations to develop and execute nimbly. So, a little bit of background on the two use cases I'll be presenting today, and both of these are common situations that apply in any B2B organization, and they apply across all industries. We do work with a number of different industries, as you see in the illustrations on the bottom, and especially for those companies who have made the decision to adopt a value-based approach, it's really imperative for them to be able to capture their fair share of value in their pricing and to be able to communicate that value effectively, confidently to their customers. So let's move on to the first case example. How do you capture more margin or value in your price? So, looking at the picture at the bottom, perhaps some of us can relate to the situation that this team is facing. I mean, when you're trying to improve margin, it's always hard work in any type of business. And that's just as true for teams that adopt a value-based pricing approach as well. Value-based pricing is not a magic bullet. It's a discipline, but it's a discipline that really rewards hard work. So that's why companies invest in that capability, and it's why there's a small industry of consultants, and we know many of them here at Leverage Point who do this kind of work for clients. But what I want to talk about today is how you can do this yourself, what types of process you need to do to embed this type of value method into thinking about pricing. So the first thing I were to advise if you were tackling this issue is to break this down into a number of related questions in strategic areas, because the whole increased value or value capture breaks down into questions regarding what you do with customers, your pricing, of course, product development, and marketing communication. So one of the first things you'll want to know is how much economic value do we really create for our customers? Many companies really don't have a clear idea of that, and it's important to know, and also to find out where the value is as you look across customer segments, because obviously value does change depending on who the customer is. Then thinking about, well, how do we get more value in our price, capture some of that differentiation value, and how should we go after the market? Should we maximize share or percent margin? Again, an important pricing decision. Product development, of course, what types of offerings you're creating. You're investing in R&D and innovation, but which one of those has the best payback in terms of your R&D investment? And how should we think in terms of positioning against the competition? And with large companies, there are always that cheap competitor that is trying to match you or mimic you, and so how do you respond to that? And then obviously marketing communications, how do you get those value messages across? So one approach that a lot of companies that we work with use to embed this is within in their new product development process. And many companies we work with have a formal stage gate process. And if you look across stage gate, you'll see that these value questions come up at different times. So in the early process, understanding value is really important. And so building a value model is a great approach for doing that. Then to take that and get a sense of what that may mean in terms of segmentation, and to think about how you would refine the offering or the messaging or the pricing for each segment. And then lastly, how do you get across to communicate that type of value through your marketing and sales channels? Now, by the way, I just want to mention that we've devoted a number of our past webinars to new product development and value. We've had multiple experts come on and discuss this, and there's some great best practices, and all of that material is available on our website or on our YouTube channel. So a lot of great stuff there if you want to dig more into new product development. So now what I want to do is get into the application and play out this particular scenario in the Leverage Point. So let me pull in the Leverage Point application, and I am pulling this in right now. And what you see here is a cleaned up, sanitized version. It's not based on any customer proprietary data, but it's a type of case study that we see quite often. So this is a type of value model that a team would put together early in the stage gate process, as I just showed you. And here the innovation is in the specialty coatings business. It's what we would call a revolutionary innovation. That is, there's a lot of value in it, and the main value that they're looking at right now is greater coverage in surface area, and this is for a specific customer, OEM durable manufacturers. So you could see here that the team has put together your basic type of value model where you have your reference value and your value driver. That is, what is the value of our offering above the existing coating material that they're using right now. And by clicking on it, you can see a very straightforward proposition. Well, you use less material, therefore the cost of that per finished good goes down by this amount. At this point, a very good question for a team like this is, are there other economic impacts that this innovation provides? Because there's a cost developing this type of innovation, and it's probably more expensive to produce than that existing traditional product. So you have to make sure that you're able to capture the value to fund that innovation. So is there other economic value that the OEM durable manufacturer is getting? And by going through the value process, I'm going to click on some others in here, and you'll notice that I'm adding a number of other value drivers, and these fall into various categories here. Let me zoom in and get a better look at that. So we have our material costs here, but you'll notice that there are also some costs related to production. So you've got disposal costs, waste disposal costs. Obviously, if you're using less material, there's less waste to get rid of. And there's probably a little sliver of inventory savings in there. And those are things that are directly related to the operations, the manufacturing operations. But if you take a step back and you look at some of the other areas of value, you may be looking at something like warranty costs. That is the aftermarket costs of the finished good after it leaves the factory. Does your new innovative material provide some performance characteristics that's going to reduce costs in aftermarket, in warranty claims? And if it's there, then obviously you can quantify that, and you'll see that that value, and at least in this example, is as much as the original value driver. And then even further, if you're looking at the overall value of the end product, things like weight savings in certain types of durables are very, very important. And there is a revenue aspect to that. That is, companies can charge more or they could sell more because of these performance attributes. The main point here is that by looking a little bit more broadly and thinking about value deeply, you can begin to identify differentiation value that is, more than double that original value hypothesis. And that's really important in the early stage of new product development. And I've seen it more than once where teams are willing to call it quits after the most obvious and the first value drivers here. And I think personally that's kind of a shame, because with a little bit more incremental effort, they can uncover potentially millions of dollars of additional margin opportunity. So it's definitely worthwhile. Okay, so that's the first question, how much value we're creating for customers. Now let's talk about how the platform could address the next question, which is, how do we capture some of that, or how much of that value can we capture in our price? So for here, I'm going to jump to another part of the application, and I'll be looking at the place where we make our pricing decision. So let me just turn on our other value drivers here. And you'll notice here that we've started off with looking at our price at the same price as the existing material, $17.70. Well, obviously, we want to be able to capture more in our price than that. Well, where can we go? Now, you'll notice as I move this bar, the slider up, you'll notice that the value add to customers, value add to us begin to change. This is kind of how you would split it. But what's the right amount? how much of this green area can we get? I mean, if we price it around somewhere around $23, maybe we kind of split the difference here. Is that right? Well, I think to do that, you need to think about some other factors. And one important factor that we look at in our tool is the customer's willingness to pay. So let me jump to another part of our application where we can consider that particular aspect. And what we see here is analysis of the price based on a number of sensitivity factors in here. And so let's see what happens when I start to adjust these. So let's take this idea of a reference price expectation. That is, this is a customer that has always paid this amount for that existing material, not interested in paying any more. It would take a lot of persuasion to get them off that reference price. By adjusting that, you'll notice that this model price calculation goes down. If I put in the aspect of switching costs, that goes. If I put in the factor of perceived risk, it goes down. So you'll notice that this model price is much less than that halfway point, but it is higher in that initial price. And so what I wanted to say here is that this is not a statistically valid price. This is not a pricing science methodology. It's more directional, but it's a better, more systematic way of making a qualitative judgment for the team. Because what we're really thinking about here is what would be the benchmark that we would put. So if we have a price management system that's looking at how much of our price we're keeping in terms of reducing discounts, often this type of price here would serve as the, quote, value price. It's the very first bar on a pricing waterfall. And it's a great benchmark there to think about what we could do. And as you know, every cent, every dollar in additional value capture is quite significant. So that's the first case study. And now I'd like to say a few words about the next one. I'll return to the slide. And so to switch gears here, we're talking about something later in the product development process, and that is how to communicate more value to customers. Now, perhaps you've been in this situation, and I know I have, and it's a case where, you've written a very powerful value story, a value message, and you're convinced it's a can't-miss, slam-dunk piece of marketing content brilliance. And then you go out and you test this with a live customer, and you then get that look from the customer as sort of you see here in this picture there. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but let's just say in the best of circumstances, it's a kind of polite bewilderment. The customer is kind of looking at you as if you have three heads on your shoulders, and they're trying to be very polite. And then you begin to explain what you mean, and then it gets worse from there. So essentially what's happened in the situation is you've taken a swing at explaining value, and you swung and you missed, and it's an awful feeling. So why has this happened? Well, one of the reasons, especially if you have a product where you have a great product and you have a lot of value and you have the right customer, a lot of it involves what we call messaging. And sometimes, and we see this often, value sometimes gets lost in the translation. There's sometimes too much information there, and it's too much for a customer to digest, especially in an initial presentation. So what we try to do is use a keep it simple formula to focus on two real important questions in value-based selling. And the one is, why are you better than the competition? And can you give me some specific reasons? And then secondly, what is that worth to the customer? So if I'm a customer, to play the customer role, I'd be asking your salespeople to say, what are the three things that make you better than the competition, and what is that worth to me? So here, the Leverage Point platform provides a lot of options for answering these questions, because what we've learned is that different customers like to answer them in different ways, and they simply choose what fits best in their existing sales process. So let me give you another example of what this would look like. And so here I'm showing you another part of our application. And this is really the value communication part. And this is the part where marketing people would put in their value messaging. And in a sense, they're creating marketing and sales materials for customer-facing people to use. Now, in this case, I'm using a different example. This is what we call our AirVentus, which is a purely fictional case study for training. And what AirVentus is a innovative heating, ventilation, AC solution. And here, you'll notice that the two questions are answered. What makes us different? Well, we have high efficiency fan motors. You use less electricity, and we have 24-hour call support center, and that reduces your maintenance costs and downtime. So those are my reasons why AirVentus is better than this competing alternative, and what's it worth to me? And here I'm showing it a couple of different ways. I'm showing it here in terms of a total cost of ownership here. We're actually cheaper to operate over the life of the material, over the life of the solution. And in terms of what I pay, in terms of my additional investment, here's the additional value that I get for buying the system. I could also show this in a very traditional financial justification, a net present value analysis, and payback. So as you can see here, 3 different ways of answering of what it's worth to me as a particular customer. And it provides a lot more of the details for each particular aspect of the offer, what we call the value messaging. And of course, I can adjust any of the calculations that needs to customize this for a particular customer. So here we're making an assumption of how many kilowatts this company is using in its heating and ventilation systems. And I could, in one click, update that, and then you'll notice that all the charts here update automatically. That plus any other type of material that's important for the customer, the salesperson, to have confidence in the sale, any type of product information, product specs, links to other resources, videos, etc. All of this is included in the value proposition. Again, to support those main questions: why are we better, and how much is that worth? Now, a lot of our customers also prefer a PowerPoint version of this as well. So let me quickly show you what that would look like. So here, and this is basically pulled right out of the system, one can get a series of slides that very quickly summarize what the value is and what it's worth to them, so they don't even have to be online. They can download these slides and they can use them in any value discussion, and it's a great leave behind to have for customers as well. All righty. So at this point, I think some of you might be thinking, well, okay, that looks good to have a structured process to quantify value and a structured process to communicate value, but why can't we just do this all on our own with the existing technology, and which is usually spreadsheets and shared drives? And a lot of companies that we work with, that's a good place for them to start. And I can answer that question in a lot of ways, but if I had to answer it in a word, I would say collaboration. Those sheets, those technologies are not designed for collaboration. And because of that, there are a number of flaws in that in terms of the scalability, the accuracy, the security, etc. All of that on a platform solution is taken care of. So that's one way to handle it. And now we have, companies, we've run into companies that try to mitigate that by just narrowing the pricing function to a small expert team of pricing experts to do all the value modeling and then push that out. And that's viable to an extent, but again, the shortcoming there is a lot of that breakthrough thinking that you get on those value drivers that I showed you in the first case, that doesn't come from a very small team. That comes from a collaborative team from different perspectives, from people who work with customers, or people who work in R&D. You get the better overview of value for customer if you can get a cross-functional team working together. That can't be managed with spreadsheets, or I'll say I've never seen that managed effectively with a spreadsheet. So a platform is really key to doing that. Paul mentioned the chapter that we contributed to the ROI pricing book, and as part of that we did extensive interviews with our customers to try to understand this collaboration and other related issues. And here are some quotes that they say that reinforces this idea of having a standard approach. Makes things easier to use. It makes things easier to collaborate. It saves a whole lot of time in terms of efficiency, in terms of getting more productivity out of product teams, as well as reducing wasted time. And obviously, the bottom line results, our favorite quote, kind of speaks for itself. And if you want more information about this case study, it is in one of the chapters of the ROI pricing book, but the book also has some excellent chapters as well. I am personally very fond of the first chapter. Roger Best talks about different ROI pricing methodologies. I think it's worth buying the book just for that one chapter. Stefan Liaozu has some excellent work in there as well. So definitely would recommend that for your pricing library. But there is a chance for you to pick up a free copy of that, and my colleague Paul will tell you how to get that.
Thanks, Ed. Wonderful job, as usual. So as Ed mentioned, there is an opportunity to win the popular ROI pricing. If you complete the survey, which will appear as you exit the webinar, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a free copy of that book. And we do appreciate you completing the survey. We have used information from the surveys in the past to choose webinar topics and also to improve programming overall. So it's now time for the question and answer portion of the program. I do see some questions coming in, but there's still time to get your questions in by entering them in the questions panel located on the right-hand side of the screen. And let's see, as I look over, I think there's one that I could certainly take. I know I can give you the 100% correct answer on. And it has to do with the slide deck and recording. So all of you will receive a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording via email, probably within the next 2 days. So certainly be on the lookout for an email coming from us shortly with that information. And now it's time for the expert questions. So Ed, who in the organization typically uses LeveragePoint?
Well, as I mentioned, Paul, it's a cross-functional platform. So we have a lot of users in the product functions, product development, product management, marketing management, segment managers. Certainly, people with pricing in their titles are users. We have also people from R&D who get involved in that as well. Business development folks get involved, especially in the stage gate process. And then on the external side, a variety of sales channels.
Great. Here's another good question. So what types of products do people usually start with? Are they using this specifically for new products or very differentiated products?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Great question. The example I gave was a new product, a new innovative type of product, and And many companies like to start there just because of the business opportunity potential. But this method is used, and our customers do use it in other situations. And another very common situation is an existing product going into a new market, for example, or an update of an existing product as well. So that's another very common use case. And also, companies have used this in a defensive mode. Say they are being attacked and they're losing share with some of their core products, and we need to be a little bit more creative in terms of that value communications and try to find out some of that hidden value that customers have been gaining over the years, but never really articulated that in our value proposition. It's really important to tease those out. So really, just about any type of product in the B2B space can benefit from this. We've worked with so-called commodity types of products. And in the value world, there's no such thing as commodity. There's always some value in the service and the company behind it. And we've done cases like that as well.
Great. Excellent answer. That's a great question here. It looks like this might be somewhat data intensive. So don't you need a lot of customer data in order to make this all work?
Well, actually, no. If there is existing data that the company has, linking that into LeveragePoint is a pretty straightforward process, and we do provide that. We also pull in existing spreadsheets, so you don't throw away the spreadsheets. You basically use them as sort of data sources to build up the system. So I wouldn't let that be an obstacle. But in a case where you don't even have any of that, especially in the early stages of a stage gate process, it's really the data that's in the heads of the people on the team. That's why that cross-functional team collaboration is so important. And so you can actually put together a decent value model, with a small set of initial hypotheses and assumptions. And I've seen some very interesting sessions that come out of that just to get people aligned about where's our differentiation. Not in some companies people don't totally agree or they're not totally aligned on that. So you can build a value model with the data that you have in your heads and the people you have in the room, and you can build one in less than an hour, a working value model where you can begin to get insights about any of those strategic questions that I showed on the earlier slide.
Great, thanks, Ed. Here's another good one. How long does it take for a typical customer to fully implement the software?
Well, really not that much time at all. So as a cloud software provider, we work in an agile way, and we actually deploy the software in an agile way. And what that means is that we will roll it out with a select number of teams, and we have a process that could get a team started in as early as 30 days. Typically, it's more like 60 days. And we've got the teams up and running and making decisions and really getting a good sense of what their value is and really creating some early value propositions. So we've designed this for very quick starts and even to try it as a proof of concept process. And then what most companies do is after they try it for 60 days, they go into an annual subscription mode. And there we assist in the deployment across organizations. So with a couple companies that we worked with, they've done a global deployment within a year. Okay, so they may have started off in one region and then they add another region. But we could scale that up as quickly as possible. The technical deployment of this is very, very easy. So the IT department does not have to get involved in it. We do have to assure them of the security, and we have all the security documentation you could possibly need to show that it's a secure application. But after that, it's really easy to deploy.
Great. And what type of training is offered for new customers as you look to get the most out of the system early?
Yeah, so in the early stages, LeveragePoint does provide training, and we often deliver that in an online form, sort of live webinars, and it's designed to get busy teams up and started quickly. So most trainings are about 90 minutes, and we'll have 2 or 3 sessions there over the course of that 30, 60-day period, and the teams are up and running. We also provide coaching, which are basically 1-hour sessions or less, where we can talk about specific issues that a product team is working on and help them think through quantifying value. And we get a lot of value, customers get a lot of value on it. What happens, though, after the initial phase is that companies pretty much are able to take this on their own and do their own internal training and their own internal coaching, and they call us in on occasion, or especially when we're adding new functionality to the software. We are updating our platform monthly, and there's always some new functionality there, so sometimes we'll provide a little refresher training on that new functionality. But we do provide end-to-end service on it, and companies choose how much of it they want.
Great. Well, thank you, Ed. Great answers and a great presentation. So that's just about all the time we have now for our question and answer portion. There we go. So if you're interested in learning more about value-based strategies, make sure to join our blog, the Value Strategies blog. The blog features the latest information for B2B product managers, in addition to pricing, marketing, and sales professionals. You certainly don't want to miss the insights that come from our frequent expert contributors. If you're not already a subscriber, you can join the blog by checking the Join the Blog box in the survey, which will pop up as soon as you leave the webinar. Thank you once again, Ed, for that great presentation, and thank you, all of you stayed on the line and joined us today. You're a very active group. As always, please don't hesitate to contact us at sales@leveragepoint.com to request more information or to schedule an exploratory conversation with our sales rep. And don't forget about your chance to win the ROI pricing by completing that survey, which will pop up as soon as you leave the webinar. Thank you all once again, and have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.